get this part out of the way. So in November, Bitcoin hit 10,000. That was a big deal, big psychological deal for this industry. People were talking about 10,000 for a long time in the abstract, like this level that Bitcoin will get to one day, and it reached it. And what happened after that is the conversation, the narrative at the Thanksgiving table over the holidays, much like 25 years ago, the question was, do you have email? And now the question was, do you have Bitcoin? That was the conversation that was going on. And let's see, there we go. And there's the Bitcoin 10,000, fully illustrated. Who here in the room has Bitcoin? That's a multiple of what it was last year. And then who bought it in the last 3 months? Okay, all right, got some believers here. This is great. And so to understand this ecosystem, you have to understand where this all came from. And Satoshi Nakamoto, don't know if it's a he or a she or a they, invented Bitcoin in 2008 on a 16-page white paper. And it's no coincidence that happened right after the collapse of the financial markets. And there's this saying, it's Carlson's law. Innovation from the bottom up is chaotic and smart. Innovation from the top down is orderly and dumb. And we're seeing this progression of this innovation from the bottom up with technologists and software developers and early adopters. And it's kind of bubbled up into something of consequence now, a $250 billion ecosystem. And it's just getting started. That inspired other innovations, other platforms in this space. So we have a real life Satoshi on the planet here named Vitalik Buterin, who invented Ethereum. And Ethereum is a global computing platform. Over the last year, as we heard on the previous panel, the year of the ICO, so 2017 was really prolific in this token standard that was developed on Ethereum called ERC20. And that led to this crowdfunding phenomenon where you had a project and a team and a compass, and you were going to build a particular layer of this new decentralized internet. And that created this Cambrian explosion of finance and innovation, like I've never seen in my career being in venture and tech. Truly amazing. Almost $4 billion was raised on a couple hundred projects. And we're just getting started. These are the early kind of whippersnappers out of the gate, the first few kind of folks that had the gumption to kind of put something together and put something out there. And that's inspiring a whole new set of innovators. And this whole new font of innovation is a real undercurrent that's being developed right now. And so here's CoinMarketCap.com. And this website surpassed the traffic of the Wall Street Journal. That's pretty amazing. And Coinbase was the #1 app, I don't know if it still is, over the holidays. So something's happening, something's changing. This engagement process, not only with consumers at the Thanksgiving table, but also institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds, family offices, corporations. This is a dialogue and something on everybody's whiteboard today. And so if you look at this, a year ago from where we're standing today, this market cap, where you see just over 700 billion, was about 20-ish billion. So in a year, it's had like almost a 40x run up, plus or minus, and that's a massive change. A lot of value created there. And this is this morning's CoinMarketCaps. This is timely, and these are the top 5 cryptos. And to be in the top 30, you have to have about $1 billion market cap. So it's run up pretty quickly. And what's happening is people could say, this is a lot of hype. This is effervescence. This is kind of getting bubbly. Yet, you have two phenomena going on here. You have two flywheels. You have the speculative flywheel, which is now represented at $730+ billion, and then you have a blockchain flywheel. And this one, the speculative one, is pretty hot right now. The blockchain one is ho-hum. So depending on what analysis you want to look at, blockchain utilization, throughput, utility, just usage of a blockchain is very low. Active blockchains out there are less than 10%. So the market's got a long way to go to catch up to this valuation. And so this phenomenon of the tokenization of things, like the Internet of Things, the tokenization of things is upon us. So this is well beyond money. Every layer of the internet, identity, securities, is going to get tokenized. And here you have, we all know Amazon Web Services. So they are 2x larger than Google, Amazon, and IBM's public cloud. And you look at the layers that compose AWS, and that's getting completely reimagined in this decentralized web services, DWS. And you have entrepreneurs going after each layer. So Orchid on Access is, think of it as a Tor with an incentive token. And so people could get on to the internet safely, securely, privately, whether you're in China or here, and get on your own internet. That's a big deal. Decentralized compute, decentralized storage, and this goes to the ethos of blockchain networks. When you hear about blockchains, it's kind of a funny, weird term, but think about blockchains being networks, and those networks being digital cooperatives. So, we all grew up with I guess most of us with a True Value or Ace Hardware around our corner, right? And they would be part of these cooperatives where they would get together to buy hammers and nails cheaper and compete with, the Home Depots, if you will. This is a digital fabric that allows a lot of us to contribute to these networks and participate and get value back. It's a big change that's happening. And so we see that with money. We're going to see that with compute and storage and other services. And the network effects are going to be pretty exciting to see how they develop. And then lastly, Bluzelle is a database. Genero is storage. These are all relatively new. Who here believes they own their own identity? Anybody? You do? Okay, wow. That's awesome. For the CIA or something. So it's really weird when you go into Target and you buy, laundry detergent. Trying to think what I bought last. And between your credit card and your driver's license, the cashier knows way too much about you. They know where I live, they know I'm a Sagittarius, and all this stuff just kind of is like, identity, and that's a small piece of it. And we've seen the Equifax hacks and all the other things that make news, but what if you can own your own identity? I mean, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, all composing identity layers on us, and we really have no control over that. So Civic is, as Vinny was just on stage, is a great example of that. And if you fast forward this movie of identity, think about a partitioned identity stack depending on your use case. So going back to that laundry detergent at Target, all they know is that your money's green. At the base layer, it's like Social Security, passport, go into a hospital, apply for a job, mortgage, et cetera. You have different partitions for what you want to share that you control. That's a big deal. And these layers and these systems are getting developed now that are private, safe, secure, with all this cryptography and all these blockchain attributes. So securities is another big one. I agree with Jonathan on the previous panel, what he said, that this year will be a big year of securities. And there's two catalysts to that. The Polymath is developing the platform to create tokens that represent a cap table, basically. And so that's a really important form factor. T0 is building a exchange so you could trade those. And these are all compliant, legal, and done in accordance with how you trade securities. And unlike some of the token networks that aren't necessarily registered, and maybe that kind of happens over time, but these are kind of starting with that premise on day one. And so we'll see a big explosion of cap tables going down the token path. Kardashian Coin, anybody? Anybody a taker for that? It's an example, and I'm from Chicago, so that's why the Bulls are up there. So you think about affinity likes, and these likes, how do you monetize that? So, okay, let's take Kim Kardashian. She's got a network of enthusiasts, and if she issues her own provably scarce digital token for her network, so everybody here's a Kim Kardashian fan. I don't know why I'm going down this path, but let's work with me. And so we each have one, and so we're part of this network. And if you want to get access to a particular show or bar or whatever, or if L'Oreal wants to market to our fan base, they have to buy coins, and it creates an interesting market for that affinity group. So this affinity goes into currency, goes into these economy dynamics, and you'll see that with other things as well, sports teams, et cetera, et cetera. And even outer space. So SpaceChain is building a non-terrestrial software layer, open source, for people to innovate off of 72 satellites. This is a really exciting project. It's going to get kids back excited into building and doing stuff in outer space on the software side. So this is a really exciting project. Metronome. Peter, are you around? Come on up. So Peter's with New Alchemy. He's a partner of Blocks. We're actually building a new novel cryptocurrency called Metronom. I asked Peter to jump up and maybe chat a little bit about it. So what's so cool about Metronom?
Hey, nice to be here.
Oh, and as background, Peter's been, I think he bought his first Bitcoin at 5 cents. Sold.
I'm the most experienced crypto person in the meet, but not like experienced.
He was a Bitcoin Foundation and early entrepreneur, one of the first in the space. So, dear friend.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about Metronom, which is a Block New Alchemy project. When we look at the space of cryptocurrencies, there's a lot of innovation happening on the use layer, the ERC20 layer, like Matt's talking about securities tokens. We're seeing some good signs on the blockchain layer itself. We haven't seen a ton, I think, in the last year on the money side. And when Matt and I and Jeff Garzik at Block started talking about, is there something more to do there? What are the lessons the last 8 years in crypto? How would that look? Metronome is kind of what fell out of that. So the idea behind Metronome is that there will be only 10 million issued. There will be an ERC20 token, so they'll launch on Ethereum. You can trade them, transfer them. They have a lot of features modern features that exchanges might like. You can send them out to a lot of people at once. You can pay for subscriptions with them, which is kind of a pain point, like at a granular level. Am I not? This is no good. I can get louder. Is that better?
Good.
Yes. There are a lot of modern features that Metronome brings, but there's this fundamental idea that after this first big launch, only a little bit will come out. And in the Metronome's case, 2,880 or 2 a minute will be auctioned off every day forever. So 10 million up front, 2,880 a day. And we use some pretty modern and cool cryptography to offer 2 more features. The first is that you can, if you want to move to another blockchain, still hold your same metronome, move that metronome to another blockchain. You want to go from Ethereum to Rootstock or Quantum or ETC, you can do that. You can burn it on Ethereum, destroy it, and you can recreate it using just cryptographic proofs in a decentralized way over on another chain. So
what that means is you have your cryptocurrency on a particular railroad, you take your boxcar and you move it onto another rail. Yeah. That's the general concept.
So we think of this as like a walkaway option, or almost putting another layer of safety on. A lot of you guys who have been in the blockchain space for a while may spend time worrying about how safe is that team? How sane is the Bitcoin core team? How sane is the Bitcoin Cash team? What happens if Vitalik and Putin just get together in some giant thing? And so Metronome wants to sort of help people answer that question with the ability to kind of walk away and move somewhere. So that's this first piece that we think is really cool, and we have this guarantee that there will still be no more than the number of tokens I described, this 10 million plus 2880. And then the second thing about it is that it's not an ICO, which I think is fun. So New Alchemy is doing a number of these this year as is Block, where there's plenty of capital. We've self-funded this project. We're not trying to raise money with it at all.
So no pre-ICO, no foundation getting the proceeds. We're not getting the proceeds. This is a really new novel thing of what do you do when you sell these new tokens?
I can tell you. That was a good question. And actually that's a good moment to say on the design goal. The goal here is to set something out that can be as free of politics as possible is one of the goals. This is kind of an informed goal for our space. So what will happen is there's an auction.
You got 30 seconds.
There's a big auction. It's a descending price auction. It'll go down like 1% every few minutes. Whenever you want to buy, you can buy. All that money goes into what's called a proceeds contract. So the Ethereum will be held in this proceeds contract, and 1/4% of it comes out a day and backs it in a smart contract. So it will be a market
It's like
maker.
kindling for a new cryptocurrency. So it's a really novel concept.
And all of that will come out over 3 years back to really essentially the holders of Metronom as a way for them to back and fund this community up front. So that's it, and
Awesome.
we're excited about it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to wrap up here. That was a commercial for Metronom, so stay tuned. We're really excited about it. It's no pre-ICO, all self-funded, and it's very novel. So what's happened underneath our feet? A new asset class has been born. Cryptocurrencies, crypto assets. This is an entirely new thing, and people are trying to get their arms around it. Is this for real? How do I manage it? How do I store it? There are custodians, institutional investors have all these questions, and all these form factors are getting developed in real time. It's something that's been a while in the making, and now massive money is coming in, a wall of money, institutional investors, enterprises are trying to develop systems and form factors around this, wallets, et cetera. So it's happening. When Fidelity, when Abby Johnson was on stage in New York last spring talking about this, it kind of rang a bell around Wall Street. And I guess Jamie Dimon recanted his Bitcoin fraud comment. I was on CNBC in Singapore a couple months ago, and they were interviewing me, and the guy before me he's a CIO of a big bank. He's like, he called Bitcoin a Ponzi. And I didn't know that. I'm like, well, people are having their Kodak moment, in this space. And, I tell this, to 60-year-old CTOs of banks to my teenage kids is, lock your door, turn off your phone and study this technology for a day. You'll kind of appreciate it. And it's a great investment of time. And so what's happening here, these two worlds are forming. You have, financial services or pick your industry, and then you have this decentralized version. You have this incumbents, which have massive scale. They have brands, they have networks, they have regulatory edges. And then on the other side, you have this, sub-trillion-dollar ecosystem, budding ecosystem that's growing very, very fast and attracting some of the best talent to kind of reimagine a lot of the layers, not necessarily replacing these layers, but creating net new layers, which is pretty exciting. And so, if history is any guide, are these worlds going to connect or collide? They'll probably connect in some way. It'll be interesting to see how. And then lastly here, so what's happening in 2018, regulation. I think we're going to see more and more of that coming into focus. We saw China put a ban on. We saw, I thought the SEC and the US has been relatively laissez-faire and kind of pro-growth. And we're going to see some bad regulation. And so that's why it's important to educate and spend time with regulators if you care about this industry. Adoption, that's a blowfish. Most people using a wallet today, it's like filleting your own blowfish. It's still relatively hard. I mean, let's face it. These form factors, these wallets, all these things are getting better and better every day. And then hype we talked about. I remember in the early internet, people got really excited about pet food and women's shoes and office supplies, putting that online. It was like a big deal. They were like, I'm going to change the world with this stuff. And here we're talking about like money layers, identity layers, and all these cool things. And so I think the hype is you need effervescence to fund new rails, new industries, new platforms like we're talking about. And so the tokenization of things is upon us, and happy to answer any questions at the end here. Thank you.